Hello, everybody out there in Facebook land. Hope you're having a good start to your week. Today's the 16th, I believe, if I have my interior calendar right in my head. And that means that Christmas is upon us. Kara and I were just having this conversation a little bit about the hustle and bustle, or the lack of hustle and bustle, if you choose to do that. But here's what I would say to you as we get down to the last 9 days of Christmas: slow down, pump the brakes, enjoy your daily life, enjoy those around you. Christmas, for me, as you guys know, it's all about the birth of Jesus. But even if you're not a Christian, and that's okay if you're not, but I just want to encourage you that it's not all about the gifts. It's about spending time with those that you love. And so I hope you get plenty of opportunity to do that the next 9 days, not just Christmas Day itself. But I'm just thrilled to be with you this Tuesday afternoon because that means that we're live, and that means we have another special guest. And I think you're definitely going to find that to be the case today. I just want to take a moment, and I'm going to do this because I'm predictable, but it's a good kind of predictable because I'm honored to be the one that gets to tell you, especially in this busy season, because I'm betting that no one has told you this Tuesday, December the 16th, that you are worthy of love, respect, and success. You are. And so I'm glad and honored to be able to be the one to tell you that. So, having said that, we're going to jump in. I'm going to tell you a little bit by reading Kara's bio. I almost got ready to read that without my reading glasses, and that would have been a nightmare for sure. Cara Brookins is an internationally acclaimed keynote speaker, number one best-selling author of 9 books, and renowned thought leader in the science of motivation. Her actionable strategies empower audiences worldwide to overcome odds that seem insurmountable and thrive in any situation. Brookins is best known as the mom who built her own house with her kids using YouTube tutorials. With her eager construction crew consisting of her 4 young children, Brookins laid the block, framed the walls, and even ran the plumbing and gas lines for her 3,500 square foot house. She shared her story in her number one best-selling memoir, Rise: How a House Built a Family. Brookins' incredible story went viral in amassing more than 2 billion views in over 100 countries in 2 weeks' time. Media outlets, including the New York Times, the Today Show, Ripley's Believe It or Not, NBC, CBS News, USA Today, Time, TLC, ABC News, BBC, Fox News Insider, People's Magazine, and CNN have featured Kara's compelling journey, and it has been optioned for film, television, and reality television. With 2 decades of experience working as a senior software analysis and no construction experience, Brookins was the least likely to build anything, let alone a house. The idea that ordinary people can do extraordinary things is a constant in her work, including her latest self-help book, Unstuck: In Procrastination, using the ancient psychology behind how-to videos, and is why she was inducted as a member of the prestigious Society for the Science of Motivation and the National Speaker Association. Told through stories on her unconventional family construction site, Brookins' entertaining keynotes reveal proven strategies to overcome odds that seem insurmountable. Brookins has shared her motivational strategies with the world's most respected organizations, including Walmart, Google, Kimberly-Clark, YouTube, CenturyLink, Artemis, U.S. Law Network, Lincoln Financial Group, Capital One, and many, many more. She also works with the United Nations in her role as a United Nations Associate Advocate to raise awareness of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and is the co-founder of the global awareness campaign Start Good. My goodness, what an impressive bio. What an amazing, amazing person you surely are, Kara. Welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I think we need to highlight you after all of that because that felt like my whole life story right there in a 5-minute clip.
Yeah, sometimes I think about that towards the end of the bio. I'm like, I wonder what the other person's feeling right now, having all
Yeah,
that
it's
read
a lot
about them.
of, I feel like I need a nap.
Yeah, well, yeah, you probably do. And I was thinking, all these different news outlets that have covered it. I'm like, I don't know how old this bio was. There's probably been a few more added since
Oh,
then.
that's just a few. Yeah, in fact, it's so funny because you don't expect to go viral. I mean, and you have no idea and what that's going to be like. What, is what it's like, what it feels like, how fast it can happen. And how you can't shut it down. Once it starts, there's no off ramp. And yes,
Hmm.
globally, people say all the time, well, you should put all of those on your website, like put all the media things on your website. If I put it in the itty bittiest font that you could read, you are scrolling through 30 pages of outlets, of, of all the outlets all around the globe in all different languages that published, major news stories and did videos and sent camera crews to the house. And it's a lot, and you don't have control over it. So it can happen very unexpectedly, and you just got to roll with it. It's one of those things you just keep saying yes. Like so many things in life, when an opportunity shows up, even if you're not sure how this is going to turn out, if you were not ready for it, if you have to quickly hide your laundry for the film crews to show up, just say yes. Yes.
That's so true. Yeah, so we'll start off. We definitely want to jump into some of that bio. So tell us where you live with the four kids. Well, I don't even know if all the four kids are with you anymore. That's a good question. But what part of the world are you in?
Yeah, well, I live still in the house that we built, and that is just south of Little Rock, Arkansas. And I'm a transplant here, originally from Wisconsin, so slightly different climate. No snow this Christmas. In fact, it's supposed to be 72 degrees here on Christmas Day. But I still live in the house that I built. My kids are all grown. In fact, the youngest is in the car right now on his way home from college. He's 20.
Oh,
He
wow.
was 2 when we built the house. And then I have one here who lives near me and another one in Canada. So I have 3 granddaughters in Canada. And then I have one in Colorado. So
Oh my
they're all
gosh,
over the
they're
place.
all over the place. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I love how when you're getting to know someone, oftentimes how the world becomes so small. As I was getting to know Kara, it was as I learned where the house was, the little community, she said she lives south of Little Rock. And for a few years when I was younger, I lived in Little Rock, and the town that she lives in, which is probably, I don't know, that it's probably 17, 18,000 people,
Yeah.
used to be where my little league baseball coach lived, and he would bring the team out there for practices and picnics and barbecue and stuff like that. So when she told me, she's like, "You're not going to know the town." I knew exactly where she lived. So it's a small world sometimes for sure.
It's nice though. Like no matter where I go and speak and travel, it's just shocking how often, those little moments happen where, the world is just not that big. And we really are all in this together. And how often I can say, hey, like, your mom lives near me. Hey, if she ever needs anything, just reach out. Like, I'll come and help. So, lots of opportunities that were given because of that. So if your baseball coach ever needs a hand, like, I'm here.
That was a long time ago. I'm not sure he's still on planet Earth, but yeah, that's interesting. Um, so we'll definitely dig into a lot of what you do. But when do you have time for fun, and what do you like to do when you do have time?
Oh, I always have time for fun. From like a health standpoint, I love to walk. I like to hike. I'm fortunate to have a son in Colorado. When I can, I go there and
Mm.
hike with him. And from just a purely creative standpoint, I'm a person who loves to create. So I do needle pointing and quilting, and we are always building something, some bit of furniture or artwork. And my kids, when they come home to visit, we have projects lined up of, hey, let's try this new marble painting technique or, something that we're all curious about. I have a 3D printer. I'm always printing stuff for gifts or utility, making things. So yeah, so many creative outlets and hobbies. And I have to have that. Like creativity for me is like breathing. And I used to, I was a fiction writer before I wrote the book about building the house and my most recent books. And I used to really funnel a lot of that creativity into writing. And because there's not enough time to be a fiction writer plus everything else, it is now a lot more tactile, hands-on creativity.
You take some of those endeavors on the road with you when you travel?
Oh, I do sometimes. Sure, sure. And if not the actual project, there are some needlepoint projects that I take when I travel, smaller projects. But more likely it is the planning of them and the organizing of them and the sorting through the folders of all the 5,000 hobbies and things I'd like to do in life to try to narrow that down into maybe a more realistic list for the number of years we have on the planet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just in case you guys are wondering, because I know many of you will watch this over the next 30 days. If you're wondering if Kara's background is virtual or real,
No.
that is the real
This
thing.
is it.
She was
Yeah,
like,
this
I don't
is
know where you're going with that.
this is it. It's kind of Christmas decorated right now. We've got Santa hats on everything, but yeah, this is the library where I live and work and in the house we built.
I love those bookshelves. Very, very nice.
Yeah, it's heaven.
So what's the story? Okay, 20 plus years as a software engineer. I take it there's a story behind building the house. You didn't just get bored at work one day and say, I'm going to build a house. What's the real story about the motivation in the season of life where you said, I'm going to build with no experience, like it said in your bio, no experience. I'm going to build a house and I'm going to do it myself with my family's help.
Yeah, it's quite a jump to go from someone who, is not playing in the dirt a lot, who is definitely behind the keyboard 24/7, and to step out into a field and think you can build a house. Surprisingly, being a software developer had a lot to do with that, a lot more than you'd think. But the season of life had more to do with it. I went through a really bad divorce. I was a victim of domestic violence
Hmm.
and really terrible stalking. And I had four small children. They were 17, 15, 11, and 2. They had seen some really, really tough things in their life. And we were all in a pretty low place. And I knew that my kids and I needed to do something together in order to strengthen our family. And I knew that they needed some kind of a home feeling, a home they would want to come back to. And we didn't have that. I mean, they were good. They had straight A's. Their rooms were cleaned. They managed all the things in their life that they could manage, but there had been so much out of control. So I tried to come up with a project we could do together. And first I was like, we can run a marathon or climb a mountain or, I needed the tangible at the end. What would we have at the end of a race? A medal, possibly, if we finished. What would we have at the top of a mountain? A photo. And I needed like a thing that we could touch. And of course, we actually needed a place to live. So I came up with this idea and I started just researching, hey, like, is it possible? Like, could we build a house first legally where I live, if, in the city limits? If I buy some land legally, can I build my own house? And sure enough, I could. There were only a couple of things that I wasn't allowed to pull a permit for, which was HVAC and electrical. Everything else, gas lines, plumbing, everything else I could do myself. So I thought, well, if it's legal, it's possible, but could we physically do it? And here's where the being a programmer came in, because this was 2007. And I know it's really hard with the level of technology we have today to remember what life was like back then, but YouTube was brand new. YouTube started in late 2005 as a dating site for a hot minute and then turned into a place where we could share videos with friends. And so it was a brand new medium where we could log onto the internet and watch a video about how to do things and actually see step by step how to do something, really for the first time ever. And so I had used it a lot at work as a programmer. We would Google how to write different software things or how to do, put this new computer together. It was a really, really new technology we were all really getting sinking into. we didn't have smartphones yet. So we were still watching these videos, on our desktop and laptop computers, not on our phones. But by 2007, I thought, we can use these videos. Look how easy it looks. Because even back then, people were editing their videos to this ridiculous level of simple. You want to
Mm.
set a foundation block? Here, 3 steps to set a foundation blocks, and they made it all look easy. So, we didn't have a full picture of what we were getting into, but I thought, "Yeah, we can do this." And I qualified to get a construction loan. It was tough to do, even, in 2007. This was just before the housing crisis of 2008, and that's important. Probably
Yep.
wouldn't have qualified in 2008. Well, I know I wouldn't have. So I qualified for a construction loan. It took me a lot of banks. It was like 6 different banks before I got one to agree they'd give me a construction loan. And I ordered a bunch of supplies out here. It was a high risk loan, so I only had 9 months to build a house. So we stepped out into this field and realized on day one how far in over our head we were. It was December 7th of 2007, freezing cold, piles of mud and a whole bunch of bricks and 2x4s and foundation blocks and the sinking realization that the only way out of this, the only way we would have a place to live, because I'd sunk everything into this, is if we stuck to it and put everything into it and figured out how to put a house together. It was brutal, brutal realization.
Oh my goodness. So let me go back. This
Mhm.
fascinating story. You were already in Arkansas. I don't know why. I was
Yes.
under the impression that you moved to build the house, but you were already living in
I
that
was,
vicinity, right?
yes, I was living here already. And the kids were in school, and where we built had a lot to do with that. They wanted to live within their same school district. And in order to do that, we could not afford a house in that school district. We could buy something, way out in the country or in another school district, but they wanted to stay where they were. So that meant we could afford to buy land or a really broken down house and try to fix it up.
Mm, okay, that's getting clear. And for you guys that are a little younger, let me communicate what she's referring to about she's Care's basically alluding to a major recession in 2008, and it shut a lot of things down. A lot of people struggled. Companies, banks were not giving out loans, at least not very freely, like they
Mhm.
were, and that's part of what it was some loans were given out too freely. So the timing of it's impeccable, but then you only had 9 months to build it. And if you remember from what I read in her bio, we're not talking about a 1,200 square foot house,
Right.
triple that size, 3,500 square feet to get
Yes.
done in 9 months.
That's what happens when you let your kids draw the house plans. And when you really have no concept as not being a builder, and if you try this, if you start drawing out a house that you'd like, and you don't have a true concept of three-dimensional size compared to your two-dimensional drawing, you'll end up with something probably a lot bigger than what you think. Once you start raising those walls, you're like, oh my gosh, what did we get ourselves into?
Well, yeah, the detail, the
Yes,
attention to detail
yes.
is
And to
incredible.
story, it's amazing. You think through all the different process. We had to dig a foundation out here in the freezing cold and figure out how to set rebar into it and pour a footer. And then to set the concrete blocks on top of that. I was the plumber. I had to hook up the water into the city main, but I was terrified to do that because I had to cut water off to whole neighborhoods in order to hook that in. And then the city tells I have to bore under the street to get the pipe under the street. And the city tells me, hey, if you collapse the street doing that, you got to build a new street for us. And like nobody can get to their neighborhood. So I'm so scared to do that that I don't. I decide I just won't. Like we're not going to need water. We can just walk down the hill here to the neighbor's pond and scoop up 5-gallon pails of water instead in December and hand mix all the mortar in a wheelbarrow with that pond water, which is what we did. And we built right where I'm sitting here in the library. It's about 7.5 foot tall, the foundation is. So 1,500 concrete blocks that we set that way.
Mm,
And
mm.
this is a really good lesson about fear and how we can be so stuck and paralyzed by fear that I made my kids haul water from this pond. We're freezing, we're washing our tools in that pond water. 2 months of work, which set us way behind schedule because I was afraid to run that gas line. Well, after we finished that foundation and I needed the inspector to come out and inspect it to sign off for us to go to the next step, you know, the first thing he said to me, yeah, I'll come out and inspect that as soon as you get your water line hooked up. Like it was never a case of I wouldn't need water. Like I was always going to have to do that. But my
Yeah.
fear made me put it off and made us all work, my entire team work 10,000 times harder when I just had to go out there and do it anyhow. And when I did, it took about an hour.
So
I didn't
this is a
collapse the street. I didn't make any mistakes. We hooked it up, we went on, and it took about an hour and we could turn on a faucet and have water.
so wait a minute. Let me simplify that. 2 months of procrastination because of fear, 1 hour to get it done.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, and I know you'll appreciate this because of what you do. I'll just share this briefly. I went to an event last week that I was scared to go to. Didn't know anybody. It was out of my comfort zone. It was a room I needed to be in. It was that next level that I needed to take. And I made all the excuses why I wasn't going to go. I finally went, had a great time, belonged in the room, wasn't any better, any less than anybody else. And I went back to the hotel and I was waiting to talk to a friend of mine on the West Coast. So I had a little bit of time, had the TV on low, kind of pre-packing. And the Lord showed me what my next keynote was going to be. What's on the other side of your yes? Because once I said yes and made that decision, the blessings started coming. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to what you're sharing. So I love this. And there there's somewhere I want to go with this from a family unit standpoint, but I'll hold off for a second. Um, so were you able to get it done in 9 months?
We did it in 9 months. I mean,
Wow.
to the day of 9 months. And it was obviously exceptionally stressful. And we're behind the whole time. Excuse me. We're behind the whole time because of that foundation, because of that 2 months that, we needed to finish in about 2 weeks. We're behind the entire time. We had 9 months. We had city inspectors. There's so many things. We ran out of money, of course. There were a couple
Mm,
of things that, we came up against, like the roof. When we're building the roof, generally you have like rafters built off site, and a crane will drop them in place because you're 3 stories up where I'm sitting. We couldn't afford to have that done, so we had to stick build the rafters up there in place. So the kids and I stick built all the rafters in place all the way up on the roof, and it was fine. It was stressful, but it was fine. But then we went to put the roof decking on top of that, which is just like the plywood that goes on top of your roof before you put the shingles on. And I watched Drew, who had turned 16 by then, wrap his ankle around a rafter, lean out over 3 stories of space with a nail gun to nail in that first sheet of plywood. And I was like, no, no, no.
ooh.
So I had to hire someone to put up the roof decking and the shingles. So then by the time we get all the way to things like countertops, I don't have any money to put in countertops, but they have to be in so I can get my certificate of occupancy. So then we Google, the cheapest countertops that we can put in, which is to make them ourselves out of bags of concrete. So we make all of our, and of course, we're right down to the minute. Like we have weeks left to finish this house and get our certificate of occupancy, and we are building our own countertops out of concrete and trying to figure that out. So there were so many things that pushed us right to that last minute. And it was the day of the deadline with the bank. The bank by that time calling me every week to not only tell me that I'm about to default on my loan, but also that I no longer qualify to roll it into a mortgage because of that housing
Oh,
crisis, because we have that major mortgage overhaul in 2008. I don't qualify under new federal guidelines to have a mortgage. So they are telling me that even if we finish on time, there's a good chance I can't have this house, that they can just take it from me because I can't pay for it.
wow.
So the whole time we're working against this, and I'm not telling my kids that, we may not even get to keep this house. So I know that I can't miss that deadline. they're not going to give me a pass. They're not going to give me an extension. There's no way I can push past how you could, on an ordinary mortgage or construction loan, maybe find a little bit of leeway because of the situation we were in, with the federal guidelines. We had to get that certificate of occupancy, and we did on the day.
Remarkable.
Yeah,
Oh
and the
my
bank was able to
goodness.
work it into a mortgage. They sold it to another bank very quickly because obviously it was
Yeah,
seen as a very high risk mortgage. And they sold it to another bank and we did it. But it was high stress to the end.
that is bizarre. Okay, like, and I know you know this. As good as YouTube may be, as detailed it may be, most people still don't have the resolve, the tenacity. You use whatever descriptive word you want to use, patience, to do that. So it really is a remarkable story. I am definitely interested in the family dynamic during all this. Is it all over the place? Is it moments of weariness? Is it moments of hopefulness? What was it like as a mom watching your family work together as a team? Give us insight to that whole experience.
Well, you can imagine. It's a comedy, it's a tragedy, it's all those things at once. When we first started, I would have said at the time that we were a close family. And we were, but we were surface level close. We think that when people go through trauma that they pull in close, but truly everybody pulls into themselves and puts up walls and barriers. So it wasn't until we first started building the house where we are literally in muddy trenches up to our waist trying to figure out how to do this stuff that we figure out we don't even know how to talk to each other. We don't know how
Mm,
to communicate well. We don't know each other's strengths and weaknesses out here in, the muddy, cold, lifting heavy things. And I mean mental strengths and weaknesses because this whole project is about figure it out. We don't know how to do a single project. We don't know how to achieve a single thing we are trying to achieve out here. Every single day from start to finish is we just have to figure it out. And we have the, post-it notes that have the guidelines that we've drawn from a YouTube video. And we have a big book that's still sitting back here with a bunch of post-it notes in it. That's like a how to build a house from the 1970s that my dad mailed to me. And though that's all we have. And from there on, it's just figure out what we want and how to get there. So very quickly, those family dynamics changed where we figure out who can do, where none of us are good at math, but who can possibly figure out the math on, the geometry and how to build this diagonal wall, who can lift things or who can drag things better. So everybody has a role. When we started, I was stronger than my 15-year-old son. And I can tell you, I was a software developer. That is not saying a lot. But very quickly, of course, he bulked up and he ends up being the muscle out here and he's on the nail gun and I'm making the cuts and taking more of the risks. And my daughter, who was 17, she was the oldest. She was doing a lot of the family stuff like cooking and bringing food to us or making sure we had food at the house. She's shuttling the 2-year-old back to the house, when it's his bedtime so that he can get bathed and in bed. Somebody always had to be assigned to the 2-year-old out here, obviously. It wasn't always the oldest. It kind of rotated to whoever was having the worst day because he was the most fun out here. Lizards and frogs and mud, and he was so much fun. Um, and then like my 11-year-old daughter, she would get frustrated because she, couldn't use the power tools and she's couldn't carry a lot. So she quickly became more the organizer, where we had like stacks of lumber. We didn't waste anything. So we'd have stacks of, you cut off a piece of a 2x6 and that falls to the ground. Well, Jada would get that and get her grease pen and measure it. And here is a 14-inch long 2x6. And she had these all stacked up. So when we need a piece of wood, rather than cutting small pieces, we'd say, Jada, I need a 2x10 that's 25 inches long. And she's like, I've got a 26 here. And she'd bring that to us.
wow.
And she'd straighten nails. When I say we didn't waste anything, I mean, a nail is bent and we have to pull it out. Jada straightened those. And we didn't have an anvil, but we had a piece of a railroad tie. And she would straighten out those nails.
Mm,
So yeah, everybody had a task and everybody was a
wow.
massive part of this, from figuring out how to do plumbing. We would walk through this house. This is just nuts. I go and I pull the plumbing permits. And I come and I'm like, hey kids, we're gonna do our own plumbing. And they're like, oh my God, you're gonna blow us all up, and there's gonna be sewage everywhere. And I'm like, no, we can figure this out. We know that the water comes into the house in one spot. I didn't know that until I built a house. There's just one pipe that comes in and all your water comes from there. And I know I want to put a tankless hot water heater in the attic. So my theory is we run a pipe up through the wall, past every appliance, up to the attic, gets hot, and we run it down past every appliance. I mean, that's it. That's plumbing, right?
Mhm.
And that's how we did it. And it was just one thing, just figuring it out like that. And I'd go to the plumbing store and I'd have this piece of paper. It was so silly. I didn't even know what the plumbing connections were called. I still don't know what they're all called. But I draw a picture. I need something that goes into a T because it has to tee off into two different places. I need a corner. And I would just draw a picture of what I think I need. And then I'd go through the house and I'd be like, okay, washing machine. And I put like a hash mark by each time I needed the shape like this or shape like that. And then I go into the plumbing warehouse and I'm like, so this, I'm building a house. This is what I need. And I've got a 2-year-old on my hip who's stringing Fruit Loops onto my hair while I'm telling the plumbing guy, this is what I need. And he's like, oh, sweetheart, just send your plumber by and we'll set you up. And I'm like, no, I'm my plumber.
You don't
But
understand.
that's how we did it. I mean, it was just this
Well,
idea. And again, this is where software development really, really helped me because when you're writing software, you don't read a book and learn, here's the language I'm going to write in. You just decide I'm going to write in this new language or the new piece of software I'm writing demands this new language. Let me figure out how to write hello world. Okay, that worked. How do I add a button to a form? Ah, got it. How can I connect to a database? And it's this idea of just figuring it out as you go and doing that without fear. Like if something goes wrong, like I'll just delete that and try again. You have endless lives here to keep trying it and changing it. And so much of building the house was like that. And in fact, we developed a strategy that we still use today while we were doing this. I wish I would have thought of this like when I needed to run that water line, but I didn't until later. I noticed as we're cutting wood how hesitant we were to start a new part of a project when we had no idea how to do it. And we'd get that paralysis, that analysis
mhm,
paralysis. I'm afraid I'm going to
mhm.
do it wrong. And I'd see the kids start to like swirl their toes through the sawdust and like nobody wants to start. And so I started asking the kids, okay, like if I have to cut this piece of wood to build like the diagonal wall above the staircase to go upstairs, and if I cut it wrong, like what's the absolute worst thing that could happen to us? And the first couple of times I asked that, like Drew would say, an airplane engine could fall on us. And I'm like, okay, like not gonna happen. And Jada would say, like, you could cut off your left arm. And I'm like, okay, learn to use the tool safely first. Got it. We did that. But every time, what it came down to, what is the absolute worst thing most likely to happen is just that we're going to have to do it over again. Like we get a do-over if we do it wrong. We're going to save that piece of lumber for something else and we can just do it over. And we started just saying that. What's the worst thing that could happen? Do it over? Okay, I'll take a do-over level risk any day of my life. And the more that we use that, especially after we were finished building the house, like when Drew wanted to go to college, my oldest son up in Alaska, and the night before he left, he's like, my bags are packed. I'm not going. Like, no, I don't want to go. And I'm like, Drew, what's the worst that could happen? If you get up to Alaska and you're in college and you don't like it, what's the worst thing that could happen? And he said, I guess I'd have to move home. I said, Drew, you live at home now. You are literally living your worst case scenario. Go do literally anything else. And that's like you going into that conference. What's the worst that could happen? You wouldn't network with those people. You wouldn't learn anything. You were already living that worst case scenario. You already hadn't
Right.
networked with those people. You already hadn't learned anything. You already didn't have a new idea for your next presentation. Your worst case scenario was the life you were already living. And if that's your conclusion, that it's what you're already doing, go do literally anything else. Never live your worst case scenario.
That is great input. Um, and I want to get to some of what you do speaking wise here in a second too. But you have to be so unbelievably proud of your children
Yes.
um, during that time. I am sure there was massive healing going on. Maybe you saw it sometimes in the moment, but probably more than likely a lot more reflecting back. And I am sure your kids, obviously they're all in different parts of the world now, but uh, I bet they wouldn't trade that experience for anything. They have incredible memories of it. I'm assuming you have I'm trying to think back to the time frame. I think digital cameras were in play already by then.
They were.
And
We
you have
didn't
some
have them out here a lot though, because you can't pause. Anybody who brings a camera out here is in trouble, right? Because what are you going to do? Like take pictures? We're all working.
yeah,
And of course, cameras were expensive. We didn't have them on our phones yet. I had a BlackBerry before BlackBerry even
yeah,
had a camera on it.
yeah.
And I had it on a little holster. I had two of them, one for work and one for personal, on each side of my shorts out here building a house. Um, yeah, so we had some pictures, but not like we would have had we done it today, or video. Like
Mhm.
there's a couple of short clips of video that were taken on a little one of the little digital cameras that one of my kids had. But yeah, we didn't document it in the way that somebody would have had an iPhone set up or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But the
this
growth was incredible. It's funny today when we talk about it, and of course we bring it up all the, different parts of it, and we'll say, oh, remember when we were building this part? And the whole room does this. Because the first thing we can talk about the lessons, we can talk about the pride, we can talk about the confidence, the courage that we all built out here. We laughed harder than we have ever laughed in our lives. I don't think I'll ever be in a position where I laugh that much at myself, at the situation I'm in, how ridiculous it is, how terrible we're doing at, different parts of it. But also, it is the most difficult, physically exhausting, emotionally, mentally. We were working 20-hour days out here and then going to work and then going to school. I mean, it was
wow.
absolutely exhausting. So the first response you get from the whole family is like just this, the weight of it, the weight, the pressure of all of it. But then you will get the funny story, the laughter, the Roman running naked everywhere because he was two, and his first thing he did out here is shed his clothes and run. There's so many fun stories. And yeah, it changed who they are. It changed them from those scared small kids who had seen really hard things to kids who knew they could do really hard things.
I bet they love coming back for the holidays like they do
Yeah,
now.
it
Yeah.
is. It's so much fun. So much fun. And now to
Wow.
have grandkids, I have three granddaughters who come and spend time in the house and to watch them run and play. And, that's what you're thinking when you're building it, that this is, going to be part of your family and that they're going to laugh and exist and read stories and play. There's a little Harry Potter cupboard under the stairs that they can play in with little fairy lights and, just all the small things. A big tree house. We built a two-story tree house out back.
So are you able to communicate with us? Like, is the housing project, is it a part of your history? Is it all behind you? Is it great memories? It's got all this publicity. It's gained a lot of attention. Is there more to do with the house, or do you feel like, you've totally moved on from that project?
No, I think it will always be. I think it's such an integral part of not only, it's not just a decision I made or a thing I did, but it's something that elevated how I understood myself and how I understood motivation, how I understood how to get unstuck and build something bigger than myself. And the lessons that came from that and the stories are so gritty and raw and scrappy and real. And the way that I can use those stories and share those stories to build something bigger, whether it's, lessons on stage or other, nonprofits and charities and corporations that I'm part of, it will always be a part of the story. And people want to hear that part of the story, right? Because it is unusual, because it is a little bit nuts, because it is taking a massive leap that not only might have been impossible, but should have been impossible. and pushing through and enduring until you reach that goal and having a goal that big. It changed how I set goals, how I recommend other people set goals and deadlines, and it'll always be part of the story.
Yeah, I love how you did the impossible. I mean, it's you'll always have that with you. And how have you how have you parlayed that into what you do professionally now? Like I'm sure that that story is you know woven into some of your speaking, but even bigger than one talk. Like you said, the life lessons. How has that manifested itself into what you do now?
Yeah, in absolutely every way. I mean, I'd never planned to be a speaker. I never even planned to write a book about building the house. That was never on my radar when we were building a house. It was, big New York editors and agents reaching out asking me to write the story. After a long time, they convinced me to write it. It took me 6 years to write it. In fact, the book came out 10 years. It came out in 2017, 10 years after we
Mm,
built the house that the memoir came out. And then, of course, I never planned to step on a stage or be a speaker about that at all. But as we already talked about, it had a massive amount of media attention. So conferences started calling and saying, hey, why don't you come and tell the story at our conference? And at first I was like, absolutely not. I am the girl behind the keyboard. And I got up in like oral comm in college and cried every time I had to give a speech, literally cried because I was so terrified to be in front of people. So that was a massive thing to ask of me, of someone, who never had that intent at all. And, I think one of the questions that you asked me when we first started talking is, you know, when was a time when you felt unworthy? And for me, that right there, that idea of getting on a stage and in front of thousands of people, the first request I had was, in front of 1,000 people, will you just come tell your story? Um, like why? What authority would I have to influence 1,000 people just because I was in a terrible situation in my life and the only way I could make it better was to build my own house. It didn't feel like a point of pride yet in the way that it needed to. It didn't feel like I had lessons to pull from it that anybody there could understand or learn from. And I said yes, just like I said with the media. I said yes, of course. I'm going to go out and do this. And it was terrible. I'm sure it was, I mean, they seemed happy. I signed books, everybody thanked me, but I was terrible. I could hardly walk off the stage because there was so much sweat in my shoes that had dripped down the back of my knees. Like I was just gripping the podium and perspiring. Um, but then I already had another one booked. And by the time I, was stepping on
mm,
that stage, I had 3 or 4 more booked. And every one of them I learned, and I kept saying yes. And you know what I did? I went to YouTube and I asked, how do you be a keynote speaker? What is a keynote
yeah.
speaker? What is this supposed to look like? And I figured it out. And I figured out that I am worthy and that I do have something to share and that I should keep stepping on that stage. And that it's even bigger now than the house or the stage. And that the stage isn't, it started to get a little uncomfortable for me because the better I got at telling the story and relaying the lessons, the more that it felt like it was a look at me story. And I'm literally talking about my own backyard, right? Like I live here. I mow this lawn, you know. And it started to feel so me focused. And I'm talking to the audience, I'm trying to share with the audience, I'm trying to bring them into it, but still it was about me, right? So then I started looking for ways to make it bigger. And that is what I'm still in the process of now. But my oldest daughter, Hope, and I work together a lot. She runs a branding and strategy company of her own. And then we work together in many ways. And one of the ways we decided to work together is we started a global awareness campaign called Start Good. And it is just about starting good things on the planet and in not only encouraging other people to start good, but giving them actual avenues where they can start good, where they can take action, where they can physically build things that make people's lives better, that make the world better. So now at every stage and off the stage, I work with nonprofits to make that happen. And one of my biggest is Heifer International. And I have a huge partnership with them. So every stage that I speak on, I give away a pregnant goat, a hive of bees, and a flock of chickens. And I give those to developing countries, to individuals who are about to take on a massive task. They have never had a pregnant goat. They have never had a hive of bees, but they are willing to take that leap to make their life better. And I give those away in the name of attendees at the conference who participate in a part of my presentation. And then I'm going to these countries. I'm going to Bangladesh in 2026. I'm going to Bangladesh and Honduras. We're taking executives from the companies I'm speaking to with us to the developing countries to work in regenerative agriculture and just to give people the dignity of being able to have a sustainable living. To let them know they are worthy of that. They are worthy of having food, safety, and a nice place to live. So now when I get on a stage, there's the house. There will always be the house.
Mm.
There will always be the lessons from that. And then there's the now, where do we take that? How do we connect you to something global that can make life better for people? So, and then we build beehives. I build beehives at conferences too. So that's our physical activity that we can do a community service project where we build beehives with Heifer International at events. So now we have the physicality, which is releasing oxytocin, which is exceptionally fantastic for team building when you're at a conference. So that's how we pulled it all together and expanded it. But still, like the house is the literal foundation of all of this.
It's amazing the work you're doing. And I know when we first connected, you were just coming off the road from quite, a number of speaking engagements. So you're really, really busy with that. I'd like, even though we'll put this in the description, Kara, I'd love for you to tell folks where they can learn more about you, but also where they can learn more about Start Good.
Yes, everything's on my website, which is just my name, carabrookins.com.
Okay. All right. carabrookins.com is where you can learn more. What is coming down the pike that you know about that you can share with us? Can you give us a sneak peek of anything exciting?
I guess probably you would consider exciting, but also like you never know which direction it's going to go, is we are working on the film again. We worked on the film back in 2019 with Nicole Kidman, some fantastic producers, headed for a theatrical release. Super excited about it. I co-wrote the script with Kate Angelo, who wrote Will and Grace. She wrote some of that. She wrote some films with Jennifer Lopez, fantastic writer. And we worked with Nicole, so I did get to meet Nicole and hang out with her. It was a lot of fun. Um, and then it was set to go into production in early 2020, and everybody knows what happened there. Um, that fell apart. You know, we lost Nicole, we lose producers, directors, and that whole project fell apart. And we started working then on a reality TV show. My oldest daughter was already working with Lionsgate, Hope, to do a reality TV show. And when I was working on the film, I couldn't be in it because it was a one or the other. You have contracts that don't allow you to do certain things when you're doing something else in Hollywood. So once the film fell apart, I joined her on that. And we worked with Lionsgate, filmed some scissor rules, had a lot of interest. But throughout 2020, we couldn't film in people's houses. So that project also fell apart. And by late 21, we decided we didn't want a reality TV show. So we kind of just sat it all aside. And I ignored everybody in Hollywood for a long time because it's really stressful. But there are a couple of producers I've been talking to off and on, a couple times a year since 2017. And now they brought to me a package from Netflix and a couple of writers that were really interested. And we have revived that project and we're writing a whole new version. We have two sisters who are writing and looking at doing some work with Netflix on that. So it could also completely fall apart. Who knows what's next? But that is at least in the pipeline, and it's stressful to work on that. To rewrite your life for film is incredibly disorienting. You have to be five different selves at the same time and reduce your story, eliminate so many important parts of the story, and just try to really pay attention to really good storytelling so that you hit the key points. It's tough. It's tough, but it's so important. It's so important if so many people who feel like I felt then could watch this film and walk away feeling like they could do anything. Man, that's why we do it. That's why I want to do it.
I mean, obviously that would be super, super exciting and potentially life-changing if that was to happen. But I'm just super inspired by what you've done. Um, we didn't talk about it at length, didn't need to necessarily, but to come from where you came from, the abuse, um, the things that your kids saw, experienced,
Mhm.
etc. It's really remarkable and speaks to your character, how you rallied your family. You did this massive, and that's an understatement. The word massive, it's not usually understated, but it is in this case, this massive project. But it's bigger than the project. It's who you guys became in
Yes.
the process, and it's that core family becoming tighter because of it. And it's just a remarkable story, and I'm so grateful that you chose to share um, your resilient heart, your creative mind, but your hopeful spirit. I picked up on that too. Very hopeful spirit. I'm thankful that you shared that with the audience today. I know they're going to be inspired by hearing this, and they'll be inspired for the next 30 days that it's up on Facebook. This is a great time for me to remind everybody. But you'll still be able to hear Kara's story beyond the 30 days because it's going up on YouTube here in just a couple of hours, and you'll always be able to go to the You Are Worthy Network YouTube channel and hear her story. But I'm super grateful that we've gotten to know each other and that you've shared your a little bit of your journey with me, and it's very inspiring. I know you hear all that all the time, but we need encouragement in this dark world, and so I'm just letting you know from my heart to yours, thank you for letting me share it with you just a little bit over the little bit of time I've gotten to know you and sharing it with the viewers today. In any words of wisdom or encouraging words you want to leave the viewers before we log off?
Yeah, I think so many people think they have to wait for the right moment, for the right amount of money, for the right thing to happen before they try whatever that big goal is that they have in their mind. And you already have everything it takes. Just start. Buy the lumber, buy the land, do whatever the thing is, and just start it. Just right now, today, take one step, start it. If you want to write a book, write one sentence today. And then you are not going to write a book someday. You are writing a book. I am an author. I am writing a book right now. Just start. Just do it.
Just start good.
Start good. And most importantly, start your project, but also make sure every project you do has some element of good in it. It's not just for the money, it's not for fame, it's to start something good in the world.
Love it. Thank you for those words of wisdom. Kara, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you with us. Thank you so much.
You made this fun and easy. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're very welcome. Guys, I hope you're encouraged. I mean, think back to what was shared today, 2007. We don't even know a lot of the details before 2007. But we know that Kara and her family went through disastrous, potentially disastrous time with what happened in the family, with the abuse. But God wasn't done with their story yet. And look at what he's done the last almost 19, almost 2 decades. It's remarkable, and it's not even over yet, that part of the story. It just keeps giving. And I want to encourage you, if you're watching this and needing a little shot, a little injection of hope, don't give up. Like Kara said, just start. You don't have to climb the entire staircase. Take one step today. I think that was Martin Luther King Jr., if I'm not mistaken. Just one step. That's all you got to do. And then tomorrow take another one. And some days it'll feel like you're taking two steps back. And sometimes it's probably true. You are. That's okay. You never quit. You'll make up for those steps. There'll be days where you take 10 or 20 steps to make up for it. But I just want to encourage you that your story's not over yet, not by a long shot. You heard another inspiring example of it today. I can't wait to hear your story because you've got one to tell too. We all do. So be encouraged, stay blessed, have a wonderful Christmas. Although you're going to hear from me more this week. But I appreciate each one of you. If this is the first time you've watched since this time last week, I also want to thank you because we went over 5,000 members last week, and that's not a small deal. And that's because of you guys and your loyalty and your desire to be connected to the network. I'm grateful for each one of you. Stay blessed. We'll be talking to you soon. Take care.